All right, motherfucks. We have to talk a little bit about this WWE Fastlane, motherfucks. WWE Fastlane. Now, I don't know how I feel about WWE Fastlane, and the primary reason why I don't know how I feel is because this was what I expected. You know what I mean? So, insofar as like meeting my expectations, it definitely did meet my expectations, and in some situations exceeded them. But what I expected was for this to be one of the worst pay-per-views of all time. And it delivered. It delivered in being one of the worst pay-per-views I've ever seen in my life. I'm not even exaggerating this. I know a lot of times on this channel and other people tend to kind of trivialize pay-per-views by comparing them to an episode of Monday Night Raw. This literally was an episode of Monday Night Raw. Like those Raw Super shows we used to have back in the day were more interesting than this. Now, I'm gonna go over what happened and kind of give my thoughts on it. But throughout this video, I'm also going to explain why this felt like an episode of Raw. Because I've noticed a lot of people that talk about these things, they just make blanket statements. Oh, this pay-per-view felt like Raw. Explain why it felt like Raw, motherfucker. Don't just say it felt like Raw. Explain it, you know? Some people do, some people don't, but I'm going to do it for you, motherfucks. So without further ado, let's get to it. The first match, mercifully on the pre-show, was Riddle versus Mustafa Ali. I didn't watch this because I didn't know it was going to be on the pre-show. But during the show, they showed what happened. And what happened seemed badass. Riddle hit the Bro Derek from the top rope and pinned Mustafa Ali. Mustafa Ali, whose character has been besmirched the worst from Retribution, then starts yelling at these jabrones at Retribution, right? Retribution walk out. First the girl walks out. Then Slapjack walks out. And Mace and T-Bar hit him with a high justice or whatever. Their finisher, their little sit-out double choke slam, right? And that's it for Retribution. Hopefully. You never know though, motherfuckers. They didn't say specifically Retribution's done. They might come back tomorrow stronger than ever. I don't know. But let's take a moment to just eulogize Retribution a little bit, right? This was a faction that was presented as a big deal. I hadn't watched Raw for weeks and I heard a new faction is debuting. Like a new big-time faction is debuting. They debuted, it was all horse shit. Number one. Two, their goal was never clear. Oh, we're here to make WWE pay for being hypocrites. Okay, you failed at that now, Mustafa Ali. Now what, motherfucker? What are you gonna do now? What are you gonna do now? Straight up, what is Mustafa Ali gonna do now? Have a job with the company he's been talking shit about for 8 months? Why wouldn't Vince McMahon fire him? You know what I'm saying? Like kayfabe-wise, why wouldn't all these guys get fired? Not only were they an ineffective force at dealing with WWE, but they also lost like 90% of their matches. Like the only way Vince McMahon would want to keep them around is just to humiliate them longer. Like that would be consistent with the Vince McMahon character. That's it. None of them show any promise. You know, none of them showed any talent. So it's like, what the fuck? Like all they did was come here and try to stir shit up and break a few WWE things like a window and some property. They didn't do anything. It was a complete waste. Retribution will go down in history as definitely one of the worst factions of all time, but I believe they might go down as the worst faction of all time when it's all said and done. I don't think anything has been worse than this. This was embarrassing and also very anticlimactic. The faction is so shitty that it has to end on the pre-show. They don't even have the balls to put this on the main card, and they easily could have. Next up, we have Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler with Reginald versus Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks. Obviously, we all knew what was going to happen here. Win, lose, or draw, the main point of this match was dissension between Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. The result of the match didn't matter. The match itself didn't matter. There was only one purpose, and that purpose was achieved. But to take 20 minutes or whatever to achieve this purpose seems like a waste of everyone's time, especially if this could easily be achieved on Monday Night Raw. Complete Monday Night Raw-esque, match, right? You could see this match on Monday Night Raw. We had it at the last pay-per-view. It's a complete filler match. It feels like a Monday Night Raw match. And the conclusion of it was something that could easily have been established on Monday Night Raw. It wasn't a big deal. It was predictable. Henceforth, it should go on Raw. Kind of the same thing with the Riddle Mustafa Ali thing. First, we've seen Mustafa Ali and Riddle on Raw, so that's why it's a Raw match, because we saw it on Raw last week. The breakup of Retribution should have been on Raw. Because now people are going to tune into Raw. Maybe one person out there is going to be like, oh, I want to see what Retribution is going to do this week. They're going to learn that Retribution is not around anymore. You know what I'm saying? So it should have happened on Raw, and that's why it's a Raw segment, cuts. Big E defeated Apollo Crews. This obviously was a botched finish. Big E countered a pin into a pin. He countered a small package into a small package. That was really stupid, because I don't want to see two big motherfucks do small packages, you know? And it seems like whoever booked this match knew that, because the first, whatever, segment of the match was just Big E beating the shit out of Apollo Crews with big time, Big E, awesome moves. And then it turned into Big E getting his ass beat by Apollo Crews with big time, strong guy moves. Apollo Crews did like a triple German suplex to Big E. The Germans look legit. I don't know if it's because like Big E doesn't know how to sell a German suplex and Apollo Crews literally had to lift him, right? But it felt strained. Like it felt like someone like Apollo Crews could barely do this to Big E, but he could do it. You know, like if Big E didn't want him to do it, Apollo Crews could still do it. That's how the suplexes felt. They felt good, right? This also was a Raw, or in this case, SmackDown level match, because nothing was achieved. This was just used to further a feud. This is like, I remember one time, Jeff Hardy and Randy Orton were feuding for the WWE title, and Jeff Hardy was the IC champ, and Randy Orton was going to defend his title at the pay-per-view, right, against Hardy. And he says to Hardy, he says, if I'm going to defend my title against you at the pay-per-view, I want a shot at your IC title. So the match starts, and Randy Orton kicks Jeff Hardy in the balls as soon as the bell rings, right? And it was all a ruse. He just wanted to beat the shit out of Jeff Hardy so he could soften him up for the pay-per-view, right? And it's like, that was a great Raw segment because it furthered the feud, and it showed us again, it reminded us how much of a piece of shit Randy Orton is. This was very similar. This was very similar, except for some reason, it happened on pay-per-view. Now, another thing I didn't like about this. All right, Apollo Crews got beaten essentially in like a cheap way, right? He didn't get his ass beat. You know, he got pinned. And then as soon as Big E lets go, Apollo Crews just attacks him. So Apollo Crews comes out on top. He comes out like the winner almost, right? He didn't win the match, but he comes out the winner of the feud thus far. And he's like, it's not over, right? In his little African accent. First of all, I can't praise this guy enough for what he's done. You know? I'm going to talk about this in my next video, but so I'll leave it for that. But that's one of the big points of my next video. That's smarks and anti-smarks. But I can't praise Apollo Crews enough for what he's done. I understand a lot of people think it's goofy. A lot of people think it's like Kofi Kingston in the sense that all of a sudden this guy's not from Jamaica anymore. He's from Ghana, but he talks like an American. You know what I'm saying? And Apollo Crews is kind of the opposite. Like, here's a guy that was presented as being like a regular American, you know? All of a sudden he's from Nigeria and he has an accent. But this is presented as a guy who has been hiding his true self. This literally feels like a character change. They capture a different side of Apollo Crews because of now how he acts, how he wrestles, how he speaks. This is what they're trying to do with people like Bray Wyatt and Finn Balor. Except because Bray Wyatt and Finn Balor don't have any actual like speaking abilities, right? I guess Bray Wyatt has a little bit of promo skills, but he has the same promo delivery style. Nothing great about it. It's just this like subtly creepy guy, right? Apollo Crews has changed his character completely. If Apollo Crews were to get a different haircut or to wear a costume, you would not know that this guy is Apollo Crews. If you couldn't tell with your eyes, you wouldn't know that this wrestler is Apollo Crews. But with Finn Balor and Bray Wyatt, it's like, oh, it's that same guy. You know? This is a character change, motherfucks. And Apollo Crews deserves credit. I like where this is going. I want this Apollo Crews to be Intercontinental Champion. I think he's better than Big E. I think he's more entertaining. I think he's more charismatic. I think he's cooler. I think first of all, he's also an African, right? He represents Africa. Not like Kofi Kingston does in name only. Kofi Kingston is exactly the same character as Xavier Woods. It's just that he says he's from Ghana. Who gives a shit? This guy is, I understand it's a little bit of a stereotype, but nonetheless, he is a real African, right? And he presents himself as a real African. And we haven't had an African menace in a while. What I would do, honestly, is I would take this motherfucker, put him on Raw, and then eventually have him be saved by Omos. I believe Omos is also from like Nigeria or some shit. I know he's like from Africa somewhere, I'm pretty sure, right? Or at least of African origin. And have him be like the muscle for Apollo Crews. the muscle for a guy who's already huge. Think about that. That has money written all over it, motherfucks. That's what I would do. Instead of putting him with AJ Styles, makes absolutely no sense. Why are he and AJ Styles even friends? You know what I'm saying? How do they meet? Whatever, it is what it is. So, I really enjoyed the match part of this. The finish was complete shit, and everything else made it scream SmackDown. Then we had Strowman versus Elias. This was literally a Raw segment. The segment was Shane McMahon says he's going to fight Braun Strowman and then puts in a replacement. In this case, the replacement was Elias. Elias, like I've said for many weeks now, is a jobber. Elias will not have a good career in WWE. It's over, okay? It's done. Obviously, Braun Strowman squashed him. No one really cared. Elias got the upper hand a few times because of Jackson Riker, but it means nothing. This was a squash match, you know? And it was a Raw match. Rollins versus Nakamura was one of the only matches that did not feel like a Raw match. Now, this is a match you might see on Raw or on SmackDown, but this felt like a pay-per-view, right? This pushed the Cesaro versus Rollins narrative pretty well, you know, because it was like they kept talking about Cesaro during the match. Seth Rollins had a good match, right? And he beat Nakamura. Now, Nakamura, I know he's lost all credibility, but in a different context. Like when Nakamura won the Royal Rumble, Nakamura versus Rollins would have been what people consider a dream match. So you have to give it some props for that. Like, these are two people that are presented as being big time wrestlers and they're wrestling. And typically they don't do that. Typically it'll be like Seth Rollins versus, like, I don't know, Chad Gable, and Nakamura versus, I don't know, Dominic Mysterio, and then they'll never meet, you know? So this felt a little bit better. Not great, but it felt a bit better, you know what I mean? Seth Rollins won the match. He went for a Shining Wizard, and it turned into a move that's called the Black Magic, motherfucks, where he hooks his leg into the thigh of Nakamura, and then back kicks him in the head. The only thing that sucked about this was afterwards he just hit the curb stomp. You know, that was his big move. The big move was he hit the Black Magic, and that set up Nakamura perfectly for the thing. I thought it was a little shitty looking, a little corny, but whatever, you know. The match was good otherwise, right? Nothing great happened, though. Then we had Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus. I shouldn't have to explain why this match was shit, why this match is a Raw match, and why I didn't even watch it. All right? I skipped all the way to the end of this match to see the finish, which I hated, right? Nothing here was different than any other Sheamus versus Drew McIntyre match. Sheamus obviously lost to push Drew McIntyre towards WrestleMania. It's not really impressive because Sheamus has been a jobber for a while, so Drew McIntyre beating Sheamus doesn't mean much. So there you have it, motherfucks. The end was just shitty. It was two big guys trying to be overly technical. Drew McIntyre locks in the Future Shock DDT. Sheamus wriggles out sideways. They do this little arm do-si-do type shit, and Drew McIntyre hooks it up again. But because Drew McIntyre isn't technically sound, as the smarts might say, because he's just a big guy and he doesn't really, like, rely on like grappling and things like that, right? He did the Future Shock, but instead of DDTing Sheamus, he pretty much put Sheamus's head on his own stomach / solar plexus area, and then he fell back first into a piece of the table. He pretty much turned it into a spine buster. Like, Sheamus spine bustered McIntyre onto the table, and they presented it as if McIntyre DDT'd Sheamus. It was preposterous. Then McIntyre hit his running kick, finish, right? And this match ended like all the other running kick finish matches. Eventually, someone's going to miss something, someone's going to get countered, and someone's going to run and kick the other guy. So this happened. Drew McIntyre won. I'm sure the match was okay. I remember skipping around a lot, meaning that it was a long match, and I know that Sheamus can put on good matches. And I know Drew McIntyre can sometimes also put on good matches. So I don't doubt that this match would be good. But again, motherfucks, this is a perfect example of why it's never about the actual wrestling. We've seen the wrestling so many times. You know, it's just like in AEW when they say, like, oh, it's going to be like the Lucha Brothers versus the Young Bucks. This could be a pay-per-view main event. Dude, we've seen this match like 9 times last year. You know what I mean? And it was 9 times in like a matter of like 5 weeks. They wrestled in like AAA. They wrestled in CMLL. They wrestled in like Jobber Wrestling League or whatever. They wrestled everywhere. So that's the same thing with McIntyre and Sheamus. Like, I don't want to see it, you know? I've seen this song and dance so many times. And more importantly, I've seen it so many times so recently. You know, I think it was like on the last 2 episodes of Raw. So why would this even be on pay-per-view? It doesn't matter. Next up, we had Alexa Bliss and Randy Orton in an intergender match. Now, as you know, I probably loved this match. And by loved, I mean I fucking hated it. This was atrocious. First of all, Alexa Bliss's Harley Quinn thing and persona is getting stale, motherfuckers. It's getting stale. The Fiend has to continuously pretend reinvent himself, right? He has to pretend that he's being reinvented periodically in order to seem interesting. The facts are what the facts are. The match starts. Randy Orton is looking like a pussy. Randy Orton has lost all credibility that he built at the beginning of this year and before at WrestleMania last year. He has lost all credibility. He doesn't even feel like a mid-carder anymore. He doesn't feel like a mid-carder. He is scared of Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss tries to shoot fire at him. Randy Orton flinches, doesn't get hit by it. Then a hand appears from the ring, right? Under the ring, a hand appears, and it's obviously Bray Wyatt, but the skin on his arm looks like it's burned, right? The Fiend eventually comes out of the ring. Randy Orton turns around. Alexa Bliss attacks him. Randy Orton throws her off. He turns around. He eats the Sister Abigail, and Alexa Bliss rides him into a pin. And that's that. 1, 2, 3. Alexa Bliss beats Randy Orton. Now, a couple things wrong with this. I understand, obviously, why Randy Orton was able to be pinned after one finisher. The premise, the logic of the match was that Randy Orton was caught off guard. I don't know why. What else did he think was going to happen? But whatever. He was caught off guard. He was scared, etc., etc. So he got hit and he didn't expect it. And it's a big move. So that's why he was put down for the 3. Now, the Fiend, I will say one thing. The Fiend as a burn victim looks better than the Fiend as the normal Fiend. Way better. You know? The character is the fucking same. Now he's basically Kane. All this asshole does is take cool Attitude Era characters like Mick Foley and Kane and just make them worse. Now he's basically Kane. He's a guy that survived the fire, and wears a mask. And I'm sure, he'll be all retarded now. I mean, he already was retarded, so he already had that in the bag, right? Why would anyone be compelled by this? Why would anyone be compelled by Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania? We all saw how that went. If Bray Wyatt wins this match, it means fucking nothing. If Orton wins this match, it also means fucking nothing. This match will go down as one of the worst WrestleMania stories in history. Because either way you cut it, no one wins. It's not about revenge anymore, right? Because Bray Wyatt has been getting his revenge on Orton since he was burned. He's been making Orton's life a living hell. Orton got his revenge on Bray Wyatt by burning down the Wyatt compound, by burning him himself, by doing whatever the fuck he wants to do to Bray Wyatt. So there's no benefit gained here. If Bray Wyatt, let's say, wrestles Randy Orton at WrestleMania, and he beats Randy Orton, and the week after that, Randy Orton starts fighting, Seth Rollins, it will by far be the worst feud ever. Not the Seth Rollins feud, cucks, the Bray Wyatt feud. Because what the fuck, how did you just forget about this? You burned the guy alive, he came back all burned, he beat you, and that's it? That's it? The alternative is this feud goes on forever, which might be even worse. You know what I mean? So this is a complete waste of everyone's time. The Fiend looks better now, his costume is better looking, right? He looks more badass, but it's still Bray Wyatt in a mask. And to make things worse, one of his eyes was colored bright blue, not sky blue, but whitish blue, almost like white, right? And the other one was green. He literally copied Kane's blue eye contact. It is what it is. Whatever, man. Whatever. I can't wait for the day that Bray Wyatt just gets fired, or at least the Fiend dies as a gimmick. So this was a complete waste of everyone's time, but it was one of the things that people probably tuned in to see. Just because you want to see Alexa Bliss pin Randy Orton, nonetheless, it's still kind of cool. This is obviously the biggest win of her career. She just beat a 15-time world champion. Whatever, motherfucks. Whatever. I thought it was shit, and I thought it was a Raw segment. This could have easily happened on Raw. As a matter of fact, this has been happening on Raw. since Bray Wyatt was burned. The only difference is Bray Wyatt came out now. You know? But the Randy Orton, Alexa Bliss problems have been going on forever. No one cares. Next up, we had the match for the WWE Universal Championship. Now, I gotta say a few things about this match. First of all, the match started out the way that a match like this should, right? The premise of the match, the philosophy of the match, the psychology of the match, if you will, was Roman Reigns is stronger and can hit harder and more powerful than Daniel Bryan. But Daniel Bryan is a sneaky shit who is technical, right? And this match did a pretty decent job at showing this. For the first 5 to 6 minutes, Daniel Bryan was circling him around, trying to get little takedowns, trying to get kicks. And for a while, you felt like in real life, this might work. Like this is how a fight between these two guys would play out in real life. Now, probably what would happen is Roman Reigns would just grab him by the neck and just punch him in the face a million times, and that'd be the end. But if Daniel Bryan would have a chance against Roman Reigns, this is how he would do it. And furthermore, motherfucks, this made it look like he had a chance. Like Roman Reigns played the role of bumbling idiot in this match, which he typically does not. Roman Reigns is of that build where when he fights people like Daniel Bryan, he has to play the role of the bumbling idiot that runs into things. But when he wrestles Braun Strowman, he has to play the role of the guy that throws the bumbling idiot into the things, right? So the beginning of the match went well. I do have some gripes with it, however. There was a part where Daniel Bryan did this really painful looking arm trap submission, right? It ended with Daniel Bryan putting his his foot on Roman Reigns' bicep while the other arm was tied behind Roman's back. Not tied with a rope, but like tied up, you know what I mean? And he essentially put Roman Reigns into a pin. And the referee didn't count, even though both shoulders were clearly near. Corey Graves tried to save the referee's incompetence, but the referee didn't count. Nonetheless, Roman Reigns kicked out at, let's say, 2, right? And here's the problem. After he kicked out, he just grabbed Daniel Bryan, who was right there, and headbutted him. So what was the point of this move? What kind of a good grappler is Daniel Bryan if basically he puts a guy in a situation where all he has to do is get up and headbutt him? Because Roman Reigns didn't escape the hold. It was a pin and he just kicked out. And then that was enough. Daniel Bryan was like, what the fuck do I do next? So he grabbed him and headbutted him. There were a lot of these shitty grappling moments, right? That Daniel Bryan did moves, right? That made no sense. Moves that after you do this move, you're going to get destroyed, you know? But the overall philosophy of this segment of the match was very well done. The idea that Daniel Bryan has to run away and frustrate Roman Reigns. He has to play mind games with him. This was very well captured. A lot of times in WWE, people say, oh, he's been playing mind games with him. Oh, Undertaker plays mind games. You know, but the mind games aren't very clear. And they're not really conducive to the match. They're mind games like, oh, like Randy Orton attacked Triple H's wife. You know, that's just to anger him. That's not a mind game per se. A mind game is like, you don't know what I'm going to do next. You know what I mean? So in the match, when Triple H wrestles Randy Orton, it doesn't really matter if Randy Orton attacked Triple H's wife or vice versa. You know, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, they're having the match now. They're going to have a match. The end. So that's what I'm saying, cucks. That's what I'm saying. I mean, at least in that one, it was like Triple H can't, like, lose his mind because if he gets DQ'd, loses the title, etc., etc. But you get what I'm saying, though, motherfuckers. You get what I'm saying. The fact of the matter is what I just said. This match did a good job in having someone like try to outsmart someone else or to frustrate them, right? To allow Roman Reigns to make a mistake. The rest of the match was also pretty good. You know, I give props where props are due, motherfuckers. More on that in tomorrow's video as well. But I'm allowed to change my mind. And I really liked the things that Daniel Bryan did in this match. First of all, aside from the aforementioned shitty grappling moves, a lot of what he did made sense. Daniel Bryan, for one of the first times ever, wrestled like a guy should when he is Daniel Bryan. He wrestled correctly. He didn't do any Hulk ups. All of his moves are grounded in reality. It reminded me a little bit of like Del Rio, right? Whose moves are like grounded in reality. He has a realistic moveset for the most part. So Daniel Bryan focused on doing his kicks, right? Which also looked more realistic. You know, like the yes kicks, like he changed it up. He would kick him in the thigh while he's getting up. You know, he really used the kicks to kind of cripple Daniel Bryan. I mean, to cripple Roman Reigns, right? It wasn't just like 19 kicks to the chest, you know? Roman Reigns no-sold a bunch of stuff. I don't really like that, but it was part of the story. The story was Roman Reigns is tough and strong, and it's going to take a lot to put him down. Whereas Bryan is quick, witty, and wily. And it's not going to take a lot to put him down, but you'll have to get him first, you know? So I thought that was really good. Edge's involvement, I didn't like, okay? I mean, I might like it because I could kind of see where this might be going, but the whole point was Edge was special guest enforcer. There was a part where Daniel Bryan ran and hit the running knee, the Daniel Bryan running flying knee. Roman Reigns dodged it. Daniel Bryan blasted the ref. The ref sold it like a champ. You know, people say Dolph Ziggler is a good seller. This ref sold it perfectly. Therefore, the ref should be WWE champion, motherfuckers. So he knees the ref. The ref rolls out of the ring. He turns around. Roman Reigns spears him and pins him. Now, there's no ref, right? But it was a good 3-4 seconds before Edge got in the ring and started counting the pinfall as special guest enforcer. Edge counts to 2, Daniel Bryan kicks out. So, this was important, I thought, because in this instance, it showed that Roman Reigns just beat Daniel Bryan. Fair and square, really. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't cheat to beat him at this point. You know what I mean? So, like, I understand it's not, like, clean in the sense that, like, you know, it didn't actually happen, right? He didn't beat him. He didn't get a 3 count. But the facts are what the facts are. If Daniel Bryan hadn't kneed the referee, he would have just missed. Reigns would have hit the spear, and that would have been it. You know? I know that's not how wrestling works, but it does give credence to Reigns as a champion. It makes Reigns look like a guy that was able to beat Daniel Bryan. Because what happened subsequently made Reigns look really, really weak. The rest of the match, phase 3, act 3 of the match, is just Daniel Bryan beating the shit out of Roman Reigns. Like, he did the little thing where he holds the guy's arms and kicks him in the head repeatedly, which I believe should be a finisher. And it would be one of the best finishers ever, just a guy kicking you in the head 19 times. You know, should just knock you out. You should get pinned immediately after that. But he did that. He put him in the yes lock a million times, right? And he almost had him tapping. Then, fucking Jey Uso comes. Daniel Bryan has Roman Reigns in the middle of the ring, in the yes lock. This is after applying it several times. And the narrative, the flow of the match would suggest that Roman Reigns would be close to tapping. Now, we all knew it wasn't going to happen like that. But it was clear that he was close to tapping, right? Jey Uso comes, kicks Edge in the face, which makes sense because Edge is the ref. You want to kick the guy who can stop the match first, right? He kicks Edge in the face. He kicks Daniel Bryan. He gets a chair. He hits Edge with a chair. He goes to hit Bryan. Bryan ducks under him and then hits the flying knee on Uso, taking him out too. At this point, I'm thinking to myself, he's going to get up and get speared just in time for the referee to come and do a 3 count. That's almost what happened. Reigns goes for the spear. Daniel Bryan, on the other hand, motherfucks, counters it into the label lock or the yes lock again. And this time, he has Roman Reigns tap out. And Roman Reigns, the way he tapped out, I thought was fantastic. He had this soft little tap on Daniel's hand, right? Almost like on Friday night, he's going to deny that he tapped. You know, it was this really soft tap that like both screamed like I'm going to deny that I tapped, but also it was very passive. It really showed that he was broken. That was one of the themes. Daniel Bryan was like, I'm going to break you, right? It really showed that he was broken. But there was no referee, motherfuckers. So what happens? Oh yeah, also before this, at a certain point, Bryan goes to swing the chair. Roman Reigns runs away and he hits Edge. So at this point, Edge has recovered. He gets the chair. He hits Bryan. He hits Roman Reigns. He goes crazy. Edge goes crazy. He like pulls his hair like he used to do. And he like leaves and he's like, this is all mine. And he leaves. Right? That was the end of the match. Roman Reigns then passively crawls to Daniel Bryan, who for some reason is hurt more by the chair than Roman Reigns. Who cares? Who gives a fuck? And pins him. A third referee comes in, counts the pin. That's the end. Now, this match was fucking awesome. I'm not going to lie. I really, really enjoyed this match. If it weren't for the fact that this match was right before WrestleMania, it really felt like Daniel Bryan was going to win. This was, in my opinion, one of the best Daniel Bryan matches I've ever seen and one of the best Roman Reigns matches I've ever seen. The only things that come close are Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre and possibly Daniel Bryan versus Bray Wyatt at Royal Rumble many years ago. This was a sick match. This match had everything. Now, obviously, the ending is suboptimal. You know what I mean? Nobody wanted it to be like this. But it clearly shows that WWE wants us to believe that Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan are virtually equal, and that Daniel Bryan got screwed. Because Daniel Bryan had the match won arguably twice. But Roman Reigns also had the match won once after the first spear. And that one came before those 2 other times. The fact is, Edge robbed Daniel Bryan, and Edge robbed Roman Reigns. And this, in context of what Edge was saying, which was like, I don't think Daniel Bryan is going to get a fair shake unless I'm there, makes Edge the heel. You see what I'm saying, motherfucks? That's why it was so brilliant. Because Edge's point was, I'm going to be there to make sure the match is fair. And the match was almost done in a fair way. Not almost done. Daniel Bryan had Roman Reigns tapping. What Edge should have done is looked and been like, oh shit, he's tapping. Ding, ding, ding. Daniel Bryan's the champion. But Edge let his anger, right? And not just his anger, his pettiness, like the fact that he wants this to be his moment, right? This is brilliant if this is how they go. If they go with the narrative of Edge is the number one contender because he won the Rumble, and he doesn't want people to like get the spotlight from him. This is his big comeback moment. You know, his first comeback was like fucked by Randy Orton, basically. Not just Randy Orton beating him and injuring him, but even at last WrestleMania, where Randy Orton injected himself into Edge's life. You know, his first moment was stolen from him. He was robbed of his first moment. So now, this is his moment. He won the Rumble. This is his moment. And people like Roman Reigns keep saying like, oh, it's my yard, and like, I'm the head of the table. And Daniel Bryan keeps saying like, oh, this is my last chance. Even though I don't know why it would be Daniel Bryan's last chance. Edge is 47 and he just won the Rumble. So like, relax, Daniel Bryan. You got plenty of time, motherfucker. So it's all these things, right? All these things coming together. And Edge, that's why when Edge attacked him with a chair, which ended the match basically, Edge said, this is all mine, right? It's like, it's my time. It's not your time. Look at fuck. I'm here to win the title, right? So I believe, first of all, if you had asked me on Friday, is there any way you would be okay with adding Daniel Bryan to the main event of WrestleMania? I would say no. But Daniel Bryan impressed me so much on this pay-per-view that I say yes. I almost did the hand sign of the yes hand sign myself. I have to say it like it is, motherfucks. He impressed me both in the way that he performed in the ring, which means that I believe that like how good the match was between Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns. If you add Edge to that, it could literally be one of the best triple threats of all time. I'm not even exaggerating. It could be a fantastic match. Number one. Two, from a storyline perspective, I can't excuse what has happened to Daniel Bryan. This literally is a huge injustice. More so than back in the day when they were telling him he was a B-plus player. This literally was a double injustice. Daniel Bryan won the Elimination Chamber, and it didn't mean shit because he was screwed by Roman Reigns. And now he was screwed by Edge. So he has a gripe against both Edge and Roman Reigns. You see what I'm saying? Daniel Bryan, in my opinion now, should be in the match. And he should be the sentimental favorite to win the match. He is the face. Obviously, we all want Edge to win, just so his comeback is made. But this also opens up a lot of opportunities. I thought this match was a stellar match. This was, in my opinion, a 5-star match, but I might say a 4-star match just because it wasn't like a clean finish, right? But the story that was told during this match, right? Even Jey Uso's bullshit interference was great. This was fantastic. 2 thumbs up, motherfucks.